I wanted to actually, I'm trying to get back in the habit of doing some monthly webinars on some various topics, and they are not going to be long webinars. They will be free, and my goal is to try to get as many folks as I can on some of the webinars so I can talk about new things that are happening. I've got some interesting ideas I want to share in 2015 just to grow my audience and to, again, be able to share some new ideas. And it really helps push me to look for new things and new ways that we can use marketing and technology as real estate professionals. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and hopefully I'm broadcasting loud and clear. If you can hear me okay, maybe you could just raise your hand, or you could type in the box, and I'll know that I am broadcasting and you can hear me okay. There we go. Thank you. I see a couple of hands going up out there. All right, great. Well, good. Well, we'll get started, and I will tell you just a few PowerPoint slides about what today's presentation is all about. And then actually a lot of today is going to be really getting in and showing you some practical ways that you can create presentations and some things that I've had success with as a real estate broker and professional. So it's how to deliver a winning presentation. But basically, what I want to talk about today are four different areas that I think are important for any presentation. And I found this PowerPoint template today, and I'll show you where I get some of my tools and resources. But at the top, you can see audience. I really believe if you're going to build a winning presentation, you need to know who your audience is. That's the customer. And who are you presenting to? And as I was thinking and preparing about this topic and discussing about delivering a winning presentation, really, when you're talking to an expired listing consumer, their needs and wants are going to be a little bit different than the person who's maybe moving across country or the person who's putting their home up for the very first time. The expired listing person has already been through the real estate process. They're a little discouraged about some of the things that have gone on and taken place. But so we really need to know a little bit about who our audience is when we begin to build a presentation and put that together. The second key is called market, or the data. And I really believe we need to know what's going on in our market, not just real estate data specific, but other particular information that is out there and available. And if you've not used the Realtors Property Resource information, which is free as a member of the National Association of Realtors, I'm going to show you some really cool and interesting tools that you can gather and take from the RPR report. And by the way, the RPR report itself makes a really good presentation. And so I think you need to know a little bit about market and data. And then third, I think we have to show what our value is. The consumer needs to know what kind of value they will receive from us. I've been doing a lot of training for RPR around the Midwest and for the National Association of Realtors. I love the product. I think it's a great product. I just came back from 3 days in Arkansas and Mississippi and was with a lot of various real estate agents and a few that are on the session today. But I've been telling people when I teach these RPR classes that about a story that I heard just a couple of months ago. And I was listening to this MP3 when I was driving to Columbia, Missouri, and it was a motivational audio recording that I was listening to. But this gentleman said something on that recording this day in my car as I'm driving on Highway 70 from St. Louis to Columbia, Missouri, that just really struck me, and it made sense. And here's what he said. I'm driving down Highway 70, listening to this MP3, and this gentleman comes on and says to the person interviewing him, there are only really, or he said, there is really only one difference between a dollar bill and $100 bill. there's only one difference between a dollar bill and $100 bill. And he said that's the message. And I thought about that and I thought, wow, that is so true. Think about that for a moment. If I gave you a dollar bill and $100 bill, there really is only one difference between both of those pieces of paper, and it's the message that it delivers. And I really think that's what this whole presentation is about today, or my goal for you is to ask you, what kind of a message are you delivering with your presentation? Is it a message? And we have a lot of brokers on the call too. And so I ask you to ask your sales agents this. Are you delivering a dollar bill message, or are you delivering something much more than that? And so what is the value that the consumer will receive from you? And I really think this whole concept of the message can fit in all four of these areas. But we really need to know who our audience is when we put this presentation together. We need to know something about what's going on in our marketplace. We need to know something about ourselves and our competition, and we need to be able to explain that. And that's where this value can come in that how are you different from the competition, and what is the person going to get from you in return for your services. And then finally, I really, I'm a tech guy, so I think the tools that we use are so important, and how are we going to present the tools? And those are the four areas that I think are really extremely important. And if you build your presentation around those four core areas, and really make your presentation a living, I call it a living report, or always updating and changing. Sometimes I see new things, or something strikes me, or for instance, the story I just told you. I think we have to keep our presentations alive and changing and building. And so that's why I think it's very important to make, to be adding to your presentation at all times. Now, today, I want to really spend some time on how to build a presentation. We're going to go into PowerPoint. That's what this is all about, and really build a presentation. I'm going to show you some resources that you can use that are out there to help you with putting together a presentation. And then I'll show you some shortcuts, tips, and tricks that I use with Microsoft PowerPoint and how I put this together. And then we'll really look at some tips for how to present your presentation, and then some other just some creative technology tools and things that I've used in how I'm using Microsoft PowerPoint. So that's basically what today's session is all about. And I'm going to get right in and start showing you a little bit about Microsoft PowerPoint, and just spending some time building a presentation with you. And I know a lot of people may say, well, why is a presentation important, John? Is that a big deal or not? And I really kind of go back to my own personal story, because I've never been one to like to use presentations in my real estate business until within the last few years. Now let me back up and explain why, how this all came about. I got my real estate license at the age of 18 in 1978. And as I built my career, and a lot of you on the call know that if you work really hard in this business, and you work your sphere of influence and your network, your past clients, you can really then all of a sudden begin to do a lot of repeat business, which is what I do today. But you kind of get in this mode where you really don't need a presentation. People call me up and say, John, will you come out and list our house? And I go out and I list their house, and it's kind of easy. It gets to a point where it's easy, and maybe that's just for me because I'm in a small community and I know a lot of the folks. But I sell my office in 2006, latter part of 2006. It's a long story. things didn't work out on what I'd planned to do. So I come back into real estate in 2009. Now, I'd never really left real estate. I just had a non-compete clause, and I ended up in St. Louis. The market was tough, and my wife and I come back to Farmington in 2009, and I start selling real estate again. Now, I'm having difficulty getting people to list their properties with me. I'm going out, I'm giving my presentation, I'm trying to get business, and I'm just striking out left and right. And my wife made the comment to me. She said, you know, you've got that little fancy electronic gadget there. Are you using it? She was referring to my iPad. And I said, no. And she said, don't you tell other people, real estate agents, when you teach GRI classes and different things, that they should be using a presentation? And I said, well, yes. You know, it's kind of like you're preaching one thing in the pulpit, but you're not practicing it. So long story short, I put together a presentation with my iPad. And I want to tell you what, my business took to a whole new level. And I use this presentation a lot. So that's why I think presentations are so much more important, and people can learn from visuals. And today we've got these great tools like tablets, or I have the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 now, which almost looks like a mini tablet. But I mean, I can show a presentation right from my smartphone. I believe presentations are important, and I think that's why we're talking about this today. Now, let's kind of fast forward. I want to show you a couple of things here. This is Office on Microsoft Office Online. I think I pay $7 or $8 a month for this, $6. It's not a lot of money for this, but it gives me access to all of the tools that I normally used to have to pay for the desktop version. And by the way, with Office Online, you also get to download the software programs to your computer. And I think you can put them on up to 5 computers. But I'm going to show you, we're going to work right on the online version here. But as you can see, I can go into Microsoft PowerPoint. I could go into Microsoft Word. And I'm now able to literally build a presentation online. Now I'm going to select File. We'll save this as, and I can download this, you can see, to my computer. So if I want to download the presentation 1, it's actually just downloaded to my computer, and there it is right here. So I could open that up, and this is going to actually open up now with the desktop version of Microsoft PowerPoint. I wanted to show this first of all because if there are people who do not have the version of Microsoft PowerPoint or Microsoft Office, and they say, gee, I hate to go out and spend $200 or $300 for this, you can get the online version. And there's some really cool things about getting the online version that I'll show you. For example, if I wanted to share this presentation, I can now share this with people once I produce it, and they will get a link, and this will all be shared online at my online office portal, and they can go and view that presentation, and we'll do that a little bit later. So you can use the online version, or you can go and just download it, and you get an actual copy to use for the downloadable version as well. So let's go back to the 4 different areas that I talked about here. First of all, I'm going to build a listing presentation for you. I want to show you some shortcuts and some resources that I use. Now, there's a couple of resources that I use, and remember the first thing, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, the first thing I want to show you is we want to build this presentation. Now remember, we're going to build 4 slides here, or 4 different areas that we want to talk about. The first one, we need to know who our audience is, right? Now here's a shortcut in Microsoft PowerPoint for you. you can do Control D as in Delta or dog, and that will duplicate a slide. Do you see that? Now we're also going to talk about the market or the data. And remember, we want to do Control D or Command D if you're in Office, or you can right click your mouse and go to duplicate slide. And you can see that this little gobbledygook in Windows stands for Control D, and I can just duplicate the slide. You want to get in the habit of that, because as you're building your presentation in Microsoft PowerPoint, being able to duplicate slides is very important, and it will help you out a lot. The next thing we want to talk about is the value, right? And then I'm going to do Control D or right click, duplicate. And the last section we want to have are some of the technology tools we're going to talk about right here. So those are the 4 different areas, and we can build on those slides as we go through that I wanted to show you. Now remember, Control or Command D. If you're using a Windows, it would be Control D as in Donald. If you're there, and you just hold the Control key down, and while you're holding it down, press the D as in dog or delta, and that will duplicate that slide. Let me show you very quickly how this works, why this is important for you. Let's see here. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint that I have. Well, let me just go out here to, and this is why this is so important to remember, and why I'm kind of going over this a second time here. If I go to right here, this is a little thing I call a Slideshare Template, which, by the way, I get a lot of hits off of Slideshare, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. This is a PowerPoint presentation I built for one of my properties. And why I say Control D is important is I'm going to just delete all of these slides right here. Is I can actually, whoops. And when you make a mistake like that and you say, uh-oh, I just blew it, you can do Control Z as in zebra or Command Z, and that will redo or undo the mistake you made. You can also do that under Edit, Undo, Delete Slide. I deleted too many slides. I didn't want to delete that template. So if you accidentally do that, just do Command Z, and actually you can keep doing that as many times as you want, and it will continue to redo back to where you were. Here's why you want to know these shortcuts like this, because all I really had to do with this presentation is build 2 PowerPoint slides. And all you have to do from that point forward is duplicate the other slides that you want. For example, when we're going to build our listing presentation here in just a moment, we may build the front part of the slide, the opening slide, such as I've done here, and we may want to match this same slide up as the ending slide. So to do that, I'm going to press Control D. I heard several people out there say that, Command D or Control D. Some of you said I'd rather right-click my mouse and duplicate. That's okay. And now I've built the front slide and the ending slide. Now I'm going to build these slides in the middle, and I'll just do Control D, Control D. See how I'm doing that? And I'm now building slides, and the only thing I have to do is change the pictures. which I do that by right-clicking my mouse. And we can change the pictures, go add another picture, and we'll build the PowerPoint slideshow. Just to reemphasize the Control D and some things that we can learn there. Because once you can learn these shortcuts, it really helps you out when you build presentations, and you will become very proficient with PowerPoint. And that's what I want to show you, is just how easy it is to build a winning presentation. Because I think that when you have an idea or you have something to convey to the consumer, if you can use the right visuals, it really will make all the difference in the world. And I'm not talking about, I don't like to have too many slides. I'm talking about just the main key points that we want to talk about. So that's the first thing. We want to understand that we really only have to build 1 or 2 slides. We can duplicate, and then we're just going to change pictures and copy, and really we'll be off and going with a presentation in no time. That's step number 1. There are 2 tools I want to show you that I think are very important for you to consider to help you with building a presentation. The first tool I want to show you, there's a couple of tools from this company that we'll talk about today. The first one is from techsmith.com. And they have a little tool out here called Snagit. I think Snagit's $39. We'll go take a look here. If you wanted to, you can get it for free. If you wanted to buy this, it is $49.95. To me, it's the best $50 you will ever spend. Because here's what Snagit allows us to do. It allows us to do a couple of different things. It actually allows you to snag things that are on your computer screen. Okay, let's go to narrpr.com. These are tools I wanted to share with you and show you, but let's now go into I think, trying to think, Elizabeth, if you're in Sarasota or not. I can't remember. I saw my friend Elizabeth on the call, and I'm just going to pull up Sarasota, Florida from RPR. So here's Sarasota, Florida. I won't have any houses in Sarasota, Florida. I don't think you are in Sarasota now, but I can't remember, Elizabeth. But I'm going to jump over here, and if I select more about this neighborhood right here on the right, she just told me she's in Port St. Lucie. All right. That's, whoops. I hit the wrong button there. You're not far from there, I think. We'll go to, actually, let's just go to Port St. Lucie, since that's, this auto populates, so I'm a creative speller, not pot. Port St. John, maybe, there it is, right there. Here we go. Now, with RPR, one of the really cool things about RPR is that I can go get neighborhood reports anywhere that I want in Florida. Now, notice I am getting some properties in your area, and I don't know if your MLS allows listings to be filtered through to non-MLS. And a lot of places in Florida are doing that now, MLSs, because of the international activity. So I'm getting some properties that are for sale here, but let's just go over here to click more about this neighborhood. And here's some information about this neighborhood. Now, if I wanted to, actually, let me go back one. This will be better for our report because I want to show you, since I do have some properties in Port St. Lucie here. Lucia, I may be pronouncing that incorrectly. They took phonics out of school when I was a kid, and so I've been forever taunted by that. We'll pick this house up right here. Has an RVM of 1,172,000, 5-star confidence. But there's some cool things you can do with this down here. And I'm going to come down here to this little map right here. This might be a good explanation for this particular seller, and I'll show you why. Now, this is from our PR, and it's giving me some information about this particular property. I'm going to blow my screen up here a little bit. One of the things I can do in RPR is gauge this house against the zip code, the county, and the state. Well, let's uncheck the state, and let's uncheck the county, and let's just see how this house is comparing to this zip code. Well, you could see this house is listed for well over $1 million. Now, it may be on the water, and that could be why. But let's just take for a moment that we were doing a presentation for a seller, and we were trying to make a valid point to the seller that here's a dilemma we might be up against. You're really one of the highest kids on the block. Does that make sense? You are priced higher than most homes in our zip code. Now, if I tell someone that verbally, and I'm telling you that verbally now, that's not probably, it might make an impact, but how important would the impact be if I could show this visually? Well, let me show you how you can do that with Snagit. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Snagit, which we just did the $49.95. I'm going to go and by the way, Snagit works for both Windows and Mac. So they have a Windows version and they have a Mac version. So it works for both platforms. And here's how easy it is to use Snagit. When I start Snagit, it's right over here in the corner. It kind of goes away, if you can see that, when I put my mouse down. So I want to snag this graphic and put it in my presentation. And how I'm going to do that is I'll take my mouse until I see the red record screen, and I'll select the red button. Now, Snagit is going to ask me a couple of questions. Well, the first thing it wants me to do is it's asking me, well, John, what part of the computer screen do you want to capture or snag? And I'm going to tell Snagit that, look, I just really want to snag this chart right here. So I've got my mouse, and while I'm holding my mouse key down, I'm drawing a map, or a box, I should say. It is a map too, I guess. And now I'll let up with my mouse, and Snagit is now asking me the questions. Do you want to take a photograph of this part of the computer screen, or do I want to videotape something on the computer screen? And I'm going to say, I don't want to videotape this. I want to just take a picture of it. So I select the image, capture the image, and here's what Snagit has captured. Now I can add tools. So if I want to add some kind of a call out box, or if I want to add, say, this arrow, I could bring this arrow right here, and I could put the arrow in there if I want to. Sometimes I just leave it alone because I'm going to talk about this in my PowerPoint. Now I will select File, Save As. We're just saving this graphic from Snagit. Remember, we captured it. We want to use it in our PowerPoint. And so I'm selecting File, Save As, and I'm just going to call this zip code comparison. And I'm going to save this on my desktop right here. Now, I save things on my desktop, and I'll show you how I kind of organize and file these in just a little bit. But I'm going to, and it's going to save it as a JPEG. Everything else will stay the same, and I'll save this. Now, I can just close out of Snagit. It's still over here if I need to use it. And I've now taken that image. So let's jump back to the PowerPoint. And remember, when we were talking about market data, this may be one of those slides we want to use here. I'm going to do Control D because I want to build an extra slide here. And so I have a, I'm building, I may have more than one slide for market data. So I'm going to highlight the slide over here on the left. This is the slide I want to put the graphic on. And I will go to Insert, Photo from File. Now they have shortcuts here as well. So I could select Photo from File right there. Same thing, just as you get to be familiar with PowerPoint, you'll find some of these. Now I'm going to go to Desktop. And I want to find that image, which is right here, zip code comparison. And I'll insert this. Here we go, right there. Now I may want to, I think I'm just going to delete that text box. And I'm going to move this image back up here. And now I have my first PowerPoint image when we start talking about data. I may want to use that. I just think it gives it a nice, clear, crisp look, or it gives it kind of a professional look. So if you double click your image with your mouse, it gives you some selections here. And you can do all kinds of crazy things if you want. You might want to put that kind of a little box around it. And whatever image you pick, I think you should be consistent throughout your PowerPoint, because that just makes your PowerPoint look that much better. And I think that looks pretty good. I'll keep that. The one I normally pick is this one right here. But I actually think I like that it kind of gives a shadow effect to the bottom there, but I'm going to go back here and I think I'm going to pick that one. I like that with the little graphic around it. That's all I'm going to have for that particular slide, because what I want to try to convey to the seller is their home is in gold and the zip code is in blue. And if I'm going in on a pricing, remember, know who your audience is. Who are you talking to? If this is someone that you need to try to encourage them to come in with an effective list price, you might want this particular graphic to be there. Now you can always add shapes. So if I want to add an arrow right here, I can do that. And this might be a good indicator to show them where the gap is in the market. You don't have to add a lot of arrows. And personally, I think less is better. Just like this, you don't need to add a lot of wording or information. I think just the graphic works very, very fine. That's the first tool. We kind of covered a lot of ground there, but it's Snagit. And once you have Snagit, you can do some very interesting things with it. In fact, you can pull data from the MLS report and snag information from the MLS report that you may want to show without pulling in all of the information. Now, the other day, and I'm going to just minimize this screen a little bit, but you might, here is median days in RPR 87 for this zip code. In this particular city, it's 93 days. And in Florida, it's 100 days. So you can see the Florida market's really doing quite well right now. But that gives you some great ways to be able to snag some data, you could come over here and it looks like that is right on the river. So that's a prime location there. But if we wanted to pull out and you wanted to see other properties that were for sale, or you wanted to have an aerial view, you wanted to take a particular picture of that, you could just snag that and use that. And by the way, I've used this a lot of times as an overhead. It works really well, and I'm going to zoom in to include what that property looks like as an overhead. And so you might just snag this little part right here, and you may include that in the MLS upload so that folks would be able to know where the property is. I mean, I use it a lot with my properties and in my MLS to then put overheads from Google, and I actually, so a lot of times I may put some dimensions like that. Sometimes I've even took the red marker and I drew lines around for properties that were out of town. So it's really a good program, and that'll come in handy for us. RPR, we kind of killed two birds with one stone, is a great way to do a report, and I'm going to show you some more information on that in just a second. So we'll drop down to our PowerPoint, and again, the first thing we want to know is who is our audience. And that's important because this first setup would be slides that would be ideal or necessary for that particular audience. Let's say we're going on an expired listing presentation and we want to visit the expired listing person, talk to them, and of course, not oversell them or be too high pressured, because I'm never that way. And what most of these people do is tell you how unhappy they were with the last real estate office and how many people they've had looking at their home since they were trying to sell it on their own. We've all heard that story. So what can we do here for an audience? Well, the second tool I want to show you that's very important, or as a great tool, so we know Snagit from TechSmith is a good product. It's $50, but you'll use it a lot. I use it in the MLS a lot as well. We're going to come back to TechSmith in a little bit because there are two other programs, Camtasia and Jing, that are very good. Jing is free, so we'll come back to those in just a little bit. But I want to show you another program that I use called Presenter Media. Presenter, P-R-E-S-E-N, Presenter Media. You'll love this tool. I think it's $50 for a year subscription. I'm not trying to make you spend money today, but there are a couple of tools you have to get to, and I'll let you go out and check on that. But I think it's $49 or $50 for a year of all. And I use a lot of graphics and do a lot of stuff online. These people have the best solution and the best product that I think is out on the market. And here's how easy it is to use Presenter Media. First of all, you can get PowerPoint templates. The template I used today in the beginning was free for me. I can use any of these graphics and templates I want. So if you do sales meetings, they have tons of templates. They have animated templates and static templates. I'm not a real big user of animated templates because I think that people get tired of looking at those in presentations. And so I try to stay away from having too many animated objects or presentation templates, but you can use a static template here. So let's go up here, and I'm just going to type in real estate. And let's go and just see what some real estate graphics are. you can see that now some of these are animated. I don't use a lot of those because if I'm in a presentation with a seller or a client, I don't want a lot of distracting stuff going on. I want them to pay attention to me. But there's lots of different graphics here. And what's really cool is you can customize some of these. So let's go and let's type in unhappy. I could have done sad. I'm just going to look and see. Here we go. That's not what we want. Let's try the word sad. By the way, you just search and look because they've got tons of stuff out there. And here's something else that's interesting. Because I read this report the other day, and I'm very involved with the National Speakers Association, and there's lots of research that's done out there on how people remember things. And believe it or not, people will remember stick objects or cartoon illustrations better than they will photographs. And so a lot of people are really big, and I've been pretty big on using these animated or cartoon type stick objects, and I've had people tell me that they remembered certain things about the graphic that I used on a particular item. What I'm wanting to try to find here is if we're going on an expired listing, we want to find something that we could use to help tell the story, because we need to know who the audience is, right? And I'm thinking, if I'm just thinking out loud here, and I'm trying to come up with something, and here, maybe we might want to use that. That there are people. Let's take this one right here. I think this looks pretty good. He's bummed out. And all you have to do is find the one you want. I usually do a middle, and I'm going to download it. Okay. Now, back in PowerPoint, remember we're building this presentation. I can take this bummed out, and I'm going to slide this right here onto my slide. Now I may want to add some text here, and I'm going to just delete that because it's centered. And sometimes I delete all. I like to work off a plain graphic or box. And notice I can add a text box here. I can also go to Insert Text Box. So I'm going to add this text box. Whoops. Right there. Right here. And here I might add verbiage on you may be asking, why did our house not sell? And I'm just trying to go off the cuff here and think about this, but that may be a question people might be asking themselves. And so a couple of things you can do. You can grab these with your mouse and you can reshape and resize. I'm just taking my mouse to the corner of one of these corners. You have to do it in the corner. And notice when my mouse goes into the corner, I get a double arrow. That allows me to reshape the box. Now, if I highlight this box, like I have where you see everything highlighted, I can actually come up here. There's a larger font and a smaller font, and I can begin to increase the font by just pressing that button. See that? And I can resize the box. And because I have that highlighted, I can now do all kinds of creative things to that. In fact, I can even change the font. I don't have to do anything else because the box is selected. And once you have that box selected, then you're free to go out and make any of the changes you want. See that? Now, I'm just trying to talk to our audience because we might be wanting to have the conversation with our audience. You might be asking why your house, why didn't our house sell? That's a question. I never like to beat up another real estate company or another agent. There are lots of reasons why houses don't sell. It might be priced too high. We may be able to come over here to that RPR report that we were at a while ago, and we might find a data right down here where it says days on market. Now I'm going to blow this up and we'll come over here, and that may be the object that we want to snag right here. And we'll take that picture. Now that's a pretty short days on market, but I just want to show you that we could take that picture of that particular chart, and actually we can do a better one than that because we can come over here and go to more about this neighborhood, and we can go to housing, and right here we can take this graphic. Right there. And we'll take a picture of it. And I'm going to save this on my desktop, File, Save As. I want to make sure, and normally we'll default to the last place you saved it. And you could just leave the number there if you want, but I'll call it Housing Stats. Save. I can minimize or exit that. I'm going to go back over here, and now I can just do Control D to duplicate the slide, or I can drop down here to Market Data, do Control D, duplicate that slide, and now I'll just move this slide up. And I'll insert a picture from a file. It should default to my desktop. And I'll add the housing statistics. I'll double click the icon because remember we want all of our graphics to look the same. And now we've got a statistic. So here's how we're building this presentation. And as we go through to present this, you can see that we basically, and let me swap the screen displays here. I have two monitors, so we're now able to go through this presentation and we can talk about some of these things with the folks. Now, here's a good example. If days on market was if the price had gone down, or if days on market was a big number, and I don't even see days on market here, but we could add an arrow right here, and we might want to bring this arrow in right here. Here we go. Let's do this one right here. We could do something like this if we wanted to add the arrow to put an emphasis on that. Or We might even want to just get rid of the arrow, and look at this is a pretty interesting thing here that you can do. You can go to shape, and we can do a rectangle, and let's just say we want to highlight this particular information right here. Now it's grayed out, but if I double click this, I can go up here to the fill, or and pick out a lighter yellow. We'll pick no line. I wanted to get more of a yellow. Let's do that yellow right there. And now I'll do transparency. See how I've done that? And I've been able to emphasize when I go through this PowerPoint, I really only want to emphasize, I'm going to swap displays. I really only want to emphasize, it's an expired listing. I want to try to talk to them about, hey, I know, first of all, I appreciate you letting me come out to visit with you about your home that you had for sale, and for me to come out and talk to you. And I know you're probably asking the question, why did my house sell? What was the problem? And first of all, I just want to point out that there's nothing, you got a nice home. There's nothing, the problem's not with your home, or maybe not with the other agent. It's just what's happening in the marketplace. Now, those are good numbers there. I mean, the market's up 10.6%. This might be something good that you would want to stress to a for sale by owner in that area. Are you getting the right price for your house? Or if you've got a inventory that's not selling and you think it needs a price reduction, this is good ammunition to go in and say, hey, here's why we need to possibly think about a price reduction, because the market is moving and things are happening. You just got to pull and pick the things that you want and then put those into the right presentation. But again, I think you really need to know who your audience is as we go back to those 4 different areas, and then build your presentation around how can it fit in those particular ways, and what are some things that I can magnify or bring to light that would help emphasize that. One thing I didn't do here, and this is really why you want to begin building this from the ground up, but for example, I need to insert, or you need to insert, your company logo. And what's good to do, I'm just going to go out here from my file and Dropbox, and I have logos out here. I keep them in Dropbox. Don't ask me why. It's just a spot that I have some house cleaning to do, but I'm just going to pick, that's the logo. And now you want to make sure you brand everything on your, and again, you could do that in a little rounded area. Whatever, if you're branding this, you might have a bigger logo on the front page. And then here on the other pages, I'm going to paste that logo. You might want to have something quite a bit smaller. And then you may want to include a text box down here at the bottom that would have your name, your web address, contact, and so forth, phone number, and so forth. And so when you get this the way you want it, if you've got a little slogan, then what I would do once you have all this built is highlight this first logo, hold your cursor, hold your shift key down and highlight the other one. And now you can right click your mouse or do Control C for Charlie to copy, and then you would want to put those in. So if you do that, you're going to want to reformat your graphics and have to move things around and so forth. So you want to kind of you really want to get your template built first. And that was my fault. I meant to show you that, because that way, once you get your template built and you add pages, those will all stay uniform and look the same. So be sure and have everything branded the same. And I don't think there's much wrong with just a white background. Sometimes those look pretty good, just white without a lot of colors, but Microsoft has tons of themes that you can look at. And again, Presenter Media has tons of themes as well. So those are a couple of ways. I'm looking up and I'm thinking, how in the world did an hour go by? Because I have like 3/4. I've got a lot of other stuff I want to cover on here. So I know that since we've already gone through an hour, I'm going to reset up another session of this, because I really want to build, and I recorded this as well. I really want to help people learn how to build PowerPoint presentations, and then some really creative ways on how to deliver those and present those. And I mean, I've only gone through the first 2 bullet points, so I've got tons of stuff to share with you. I was going to show you things like how you can present this to Google Hangouts, embed it on your website, how you can share it. We were going to do a Jing recording, and I was going to do some stuff in Camtasia. I know everyone who signed up here, so I'm going to send you an invite. If you like this and you wanted it, I want you to join me for some future calls on this. There's no charge. We'll pick up and continue to move forward. If you didn't like it and it wasn't what you were thinking, I'm sorry. I just didn't really want to go through, but I had 2 different trains of thought for this. One was I could just really talk about audience, market data, and show a bunch of PowerPoint slideshows or PowerPoint slides. And the other was, we could just have fun and really get in there, and I could show them how to use PowerPoint and how to take and build your own presentation, and then how to deliver it in some really interesting, cool technology ways. So if you like it, I'll send you an invite, sign up for it. If it wasn't what you were thinking, I'm sorry. But join me for future webinars in the future, because I'll do some of those where I'll talk more specific. But thank you for your time. I'll reset up another date for this. We'll keep moving forward, but I don't want to keep you on longer than an hour. But I've got lots more cool stuff to show you on how we can build this. So I hope you learned some things today on PowerPoint, and I encourage you to start trying to put together a little presentation, and then as we move forward, you'll be able to build your presentation, and we'll work on this together. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and look forward to visiting with you. And just keep an eye out for an email. I'll make sure everybody gets an email on this. Thanks again. Have a great day. Bye.